This is continuing coverage of United States versus Sean Diddy Combs from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.
You know a story's gotten out of hand when a global pop star has to step in and say, yeah, no, that never happened. And that's exactly what just happened with Justin Bieber and the ongoing firestorm surrounding Sean Diddy Combs. So let's talk about it. And more importantly, let's break it down. On May 16th, 2025, Bieber's camp finally issued a formal statement denying that the singer was ever a victim of Diddy, a rumor that's been gaining traction in dark corners of social media, amplified by the tidal wave of allegations crashing down on Combs in recent months. For a while, Bieber had remained silent, but after days of increasingly wild speculation, the kind that can explode online from one misinterpreted clip, the team stepped in. Here's the core of that statement, and I'm quoting directly. Although Justin is not among Sean Combs' victims, there are individuals who were genuinely harmed by him. Shifting focus away from this reality detracts from the justice these victims rightfully deserve. So, there it is. A clean, unequivocal denial. No dancing around it. No cryptic posts or emoji-loaded messages, just a straight-up public correction. And notably, this wasn't posted to Bieber's own Instagram or X account. It came through his representative and was delivered directly to the media. People Magazine, E! News, TMZ, all ran it. This was coordinated, intentional, and absolutely necessary, given where the conversation had been heading. But how did we get here in the first place? Why would anyone think Bieber was involved in the first place, let alone one of Diddy's victims? Well, to understand that, we have to go back a little, specifically back to the early 2000s and 10s when a teenage Justin Bieber was arguably the biggest pop star on the planet. He was young, photogenic, and suddenly plugged into a world of celebrity handlers, moguls, and media machines that operated far above the heads of most kids his age. And one of the figures orbiting his meteoric rise was Sean Combs. Now, to be fair, and this is important, there were some public interactions between Bieber and Diddy back in the day. We're talking about short TV segments, red carpet photos, a few videos here and there where Bieber was invited to Diddy's house or seen attending an event. One infamous moment came during an old MTV clip where Diddy jokingly called Bieber his new best friend. There was a lot of puffed-up ego, celebrity theatrics, and the usual awkward, overly produced showbiz energy. And for years, that was that. Forgotten. Background noise in the long, strange arc of early 2010s pop culture. But then came the lawsuits, the raids, the federal charges against Diddy for alleged sex trafficking, coercion, distribution of illicit substances, and abuse of power over several decades. And with those charges came a wave of renewed scrutiny over everyone who had ever been in Diddy's circle. Anyone who had appeared in a grainy clip or even been in the same room with him became fair game for speculation. And soon, social media sleuths were pulling old videos of Bieber and Combs, suggesting why, often with no evidence at all, that something darker had been happening behind the scenes. The most cited video was one from around 2009, where a young Bieber visited Diddy's home and they exchanged playful banter on camera. Another resurfaced clip showed Bieber saying Diddy was letting him borrow a Lamborghini. That's all it took. Those clips, out of context, edited down into seconds-long sound bites, began circulating with captions like, "This didn't age well," or "Pay attention, something's off here." And let's be real. In the context of the Diddy allegations, people were primed to believe the worst. That's not to say the suspicions came from nowhere. Diddy is, after all, under investigation for some of the most serious federal charges imaginable. But when it came to Bieber, there was no direct allegation, no court filing, no lawsuit, no victim statement, just a whisper campaign. Until now, Bieber had let it slide. But the rumor gained too much traction, and with victims in the actual case stepping forward, his team decided they had to say something. And again, what they said was definitive. Justin was not one of Diddy's victims. He was never harmed, never abused, never manipulated in that way. But that wasn't all they said. In fact, the way they framed the denial tells us something deeper about the intent here. Bieber's team wasn't just protecting his name, they say so. They were also making it clear that hijacking the narrative with baseless claims was disrespectful to real victims who are risking everything to speak out. Let's revisit the wording. Shifting focus away from this reality detracts from the justice these victims rightfully deserve. That's an important line. It acknowledges that, yes, there are actual victims in the Combs case, but Bieber is not one of them. And making him part of that story not only distracts from the real survivors, but also muddies the water in a way that only helps the defense. Now, let's talk about some of those additional clarifications from inside Bieber's world. Sources close to him told TMZ and other outlets that any relationship between Diddy and Bieber was strictly surface level, performative. They were industry friendly, not actually close. In fact, these sources say Bieber spent more time hanging out with Diddy's kids than with Diddy himself. And let's remember, Diddy was a father of 6, several of whom were around Bieber's age at the time. The events and parties where Bieber and Diddy crossed paths were highly public, promotional, and designed for optics, not intimacy. One insider put it this way, and this is paraphrased, not quoted: Diddy was more like a distant uncle figure, one who wanted to be seen as having the hottest young artist in his corner. It was a clout move, not a mentorship. And according to those close to Bieber, there was absolutely nothing inappropriate happening behind the scenes. And of course, none of that's going to stop the internet from speculating. That's just the nature of viral discourse these days. But the timing of this statement is strategic. Bieber's camp knows that with Diddy's trial heating up and more sealed filings potentially about to go public, it's better to nip this thing in the bud now before it becomes part of some larger conspiracy theory. And just to be clear, Bieber's denial is not a defense of Diddy. In fact, it's the opposite. The statement goes out of its way to express solidarity with real victims. It doesn't try to excuse anything, dismiss the federal investigation, or shift blame. It just says, we're not part of that story. And let's keep the focus on those who are. Now, where does that leave us? Well, in terms of the actual criminal case against Diddy, Bieber's name does not appear in any of the known court filings, either federal or civil. He's not listed as a witness, a complainant, or even a relevant third party. The U.S. Attorney's Office hasn't referenced him. There are no documents, no affidavits, no sealed motions that link him to the crimes Diddy is accused of committing. So why did this rumor catch fire? It's simple. Because people wanted to believe it. Because in a world where more and more celebrities are being exposed for monstrous behavior behind the scenes, the public is conditioned to think that anyone near the fire must have been burned. And when you add the internet's appetite for scandal, the result is an avalanche of half-truths and speculative fiction masquerading as revelation. But this time, at least, the record is clear. Justin Bieber was not one of Diddy's victims, and the team behind him, the one that helped guide him through addiction, mental health crises, and a brutal public adolescence, decided that was a line worth drawing firmly in the sand. And if we're being honest, it's probably the right move. Because the real victims in this case are the ones who have filed lawsuits, shared their stories, and testified under oath. They deserve the full weight of our attention. Not distractions, not YouTube conspiracy montages, not out-of-context clips designed to go viral. There's a real case unfolding in federal court, real lives disrupted, real trauma unearthed. That's where the focus should be. So if you've been wondering about those Bieber rumors, now you know. No, he was never a victim. Yes, he had some passing interactions with Combs. And no, there's no evidence of anything sinister behind the scenes. Sometimes a borrowed Lamborghini is just a borrowed Lamborghini, no matter how strange it might seem in hindsight. Let's not get so lost in speculation that we lose sight of the actual victims who need justice.
In a world where the darkest secrets lie just beneath the surface.
They said it was an accident, but the evidence says otherwise.
Where hidden killers roam, unnoticed, in the shadows.
I think you would definitely be looking at a blend of toxic very bad narcissistic personality traits, and they will be vengeful and possibly resort to violence.
Join Tony Bruschi as he uncovers the truth behind the most chilling cases.
They said it was an accident, but the evidence clearly says otherwise.
Each episode, we dig deep into the minds of those who commit the unthinkable.
To your point on narcissism, he thinks in his own mind how witty he is.
Yeah.
But he lost that jury. I was done with him in 2 minutes.
From unsolved mysteries to infamous crimes.
Geez, you've just talked about how you taught yourself how to do everything under the sun. I bet you did a YouTube video, how to best kill somebody with a knife.
Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi takes you where few dare to go.
How does someone with such a dark secret go unnoticed for so long?
With multiple new episodes every single day.
We're not just telling stories, we're seeking justice.
Listen now on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi.